You told your husband what you need, but somehow your needs still go unmet. And he still ends up getting his way. If you don't go along with what he wants, he gets upset or critical. In this video, I'll share with you the signs that you may be dealing with a controlling husband and exactly what you can do to take your power back so your relationship needs are finally met. One of the most common things couples fight about in relationships is power. Not in an obvious way like, I want more power over you, but in everyday decisions like, which house do we buy? Where do we send our kids to school? What is our next travel destination? How do we spend our weekends? Every relationship answers this question. Whose voice carries more weight in the relationship? Who decides and defines what happens in a relationship on a day-to-day basis? In other words, whose words go? Now, one way a power imbalance shows up in a relationship is in criticism. Criticism about how you do things, how you run the house, how you parent, how you handle decisions. Now, if you have a partner who's mostly critical of you, it may mean that you're dealing with someone who needs to be in charge, defining, needs to be in power in the relationship, sometimes even at your expense. I'm going to give you a few examples. For example, you load the dishwasher. He walks in and says, "Why do you put the cups there? That's not how you're supposed to do it." You cook dinner. He says something like, "You shouldn't have seasoned it like this." You help your child with homework. He says, "That's not how you should explain it to a kid." Individually, these moments may seem small, but over time you start feeling constantly corrected. And this means deep down you may have a partner who thinks his way is the right way to do things. And you kind of feel looked down on, like you are being looked at as someone who's incompetent, doesn't know how to do things. And of course, as a negative impact of this, you'll start feeling it on your self-esteem and your confidence over time. And that brings me to my second point. The best way to know if you are in a controlling dynamic is how you feel inside the relationship. Now, when we hear the word control, I don't mean something that is abusive, because we all have a general need to be in charge, to be in control, to have agency over our lives. That's healthy. It starts to become kind of problematic when I start thinking my way of doing things is the right way and my partner's way of doing things is the wrong way, and I kind of try to impose my way onto my partner. And so it may not be so much that you have a controlling husband. It's a matter of degrees. You may have a partner who's mildly controlling or moderately controlling or has this mild need to be in charge. And it may not be necessarily harmful, but it may just bug you over time. So just because I'm saying controlling, it doesn't mean you should be scared and this is a super unhealthy dynamic. It's just a dynamic that exists. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're dealing with an abusive situation, but it still helps to be mindful of these even mildly controlling behaviors in your relationship so you can hopefully correct it. As I was saying, the clearest sign that you're dealing with a controlling dynamic is how you feel inside that relationship. Do you feel small? Do you feel criticized? Do you feel powerless? Do you feel invisible? Or feeling like your voice doesn't really matter what you say, you have no agency over what happens next. And to protect yourself, you need to keep quiet. Or even if you express yourself, it's not going to be heard. Now, I'm curious, are you feeling any of these feelings in your relationship right now? If you do, just comment with the feeling you're feeling the most right now in your relationship. I want to tell you this is the first step to start having agency over your relationship and your life, because you're identifying this feeling, and this feeling is trying to tell you something about your needs and what's missing for you right now in your relationship. If you feel invisible, there's a genuine need that you want to be heard. If you are feeling small, there's a genuine need that you want to be cherished and appreciated and valued for your opinions. So the best thing you can do is to start paying attention to how you're feeling in relation to your partner, and what is the need that goes with that? What do you need in your relationship to feel better? And treat these feelings as signals about your adaptive needs in the relationship. If you're having any of these feelings, it may mean you're dealing with some sort of a controlling dynamic. Now, the next sign is the one I see the most in my couples therapy practice. It's couples that come to me and one of the partners keeps complaining that her or his need is not being met in the relationship. So let's say you've already told your husband something bothers you or you need something from him, and he agrees with you in the moment. He sounds supportive, he sounds like he's on the same page with you. But somehow what you've requested and told him you needed never actually gets fulfilled. You tell him, it's actually very important to me that you check in with me at least once during the day just to see how I am. It makes me feel important. And he says, okay, but he never does anything about it. He never follows through. He never checks in with you. Or you say something like, you know what, I really need your help with our kids' bedtime. It's really hard for me to put them to bed by myself. It'd be great if you can help out. Again, he agrees verbally to it, but nothing ever changes. You're still doing this alone. And this is not because he is not understanding what you actually need from him. He totally gets it. He totally understands what your need is. But in his mind, your need doesn't feel justified. Maybe in his mind, he's thinking, you know what? I do all this work for her. I do this for kids. I prepare breakfast for them. And now she wants one more thing from me. He's not going to tell you that, of course. But to get his way, he's going to show it in his actions. He's not going to change his action just because you ask him to do so. He may say it verbally, but in action, you won't see anything change. And that's because he doesn't see your need as justified and valid. So he becomes the one deciding what actually matters and what will happen next. If he thinks it's unnecessary for you to get help with kids' bedtime, he's not going to do it because it's his way. And he's in charge. Now, if you're watching this and thinking this is exactly what's happening in my relationship, sometimes I feel this tension between us to the point that we may have arguments about it, things get heated fast, and we're unable to resolve them, then you absolutely need to sign up for my Conflict to Reconnection mini course. After taking this course, you'll learn how to handle difficult conversations so they don't turn into arguments. You're able to have conversations that feel calmer. You're able to resolve disagreements fast. Instead of bracing yourself for the next conflict or walking away from conversations feeling hurt or misunderstood, you start having conversations where both of you feel heard and on the same team. You can sign up for this course at parisacounselling.com/relationship course, or you can do it from the link right under this video. Another sign that you may be dealing with a partner who has a high need for power is if you feel like you keep bringing things up and your feelings still get dismissed. I'll go more in depth into how to deal with a partner who dismisses your feelings in the video on your screen now, but this is also a sign, as I said, that there's a bit of a power imbalance if you're feeling dismissed. For example, you tell him, you know what, when you said that to me the other day, that kind of hurt my feelings. And he says, come on, why can't you just let it go and not be overly sensitive? Or he says, no, that's not what happened. Or something like, well, do you remember the other time where you did this to me? So why are you complaining now? Now the conversation is no longer about your feelings. It's about whether your feelings are valid. But sometimes this goes even deeper. A partner who has a high need for control may actually start defining you as a person. And I know this may sound really strange, but I'm going to give you more information about this so it hopefully makes sense. You tell him you want to start a new hobby like painting or taking a dance class. And he responds with something like, that's not really you. Or why would you want to take part in that? I mean, not everything has to be so artsy. Why can't you just enjoy, going to restaurants or bars? Or he says something like, you're not the kind of person that does that. Why would you even be interested in that? Most women I know, they care about, taking care of the household or are interested in XYZ. Or maybe you say something like you want to change your style of clothing or buy a certain item. And he says something like, are you sure? I don't appreciate this kind of style. I find it kind of cheap and would not be spending too much money on something that's not worthwhile. As you see in this situation, your personality, your personal choices start being questioned, which is a huge thing in a relationship. There needs to be a firm boundary around your identity, your likes and dislikes. But if someone is invading that space, they want to define who you are as a person. They want to define your hobbies. They want to define your interests. They want to define who you hang out with. They want to define how you dress. they would like it more if you dress like their taste, or they kind of take credit for things like, I taught you to take pleasure in doing a certain activity. I taught you about, I don't know, world politics. I taught you how to handle relationships. I taught you how to be good in bed. I taught you how to be more social. So these are things that, like a partner, it feels like almost parenting you and taking charge and telling you what you need to do. So you're being corrected and taught. So you see how there's a power imbalance? It's almost like teacher-student dynamic here. The core message in all of this is either you don't know enough to figure yourself out and decide for yourself, or I don't accept you as you are and certain things need to be corrected and modified. It's a strong message of non-acceptance and seeing you less than, or kind of implying, I know you better than you know yourself. I know what's good for you. Now, this is when someone starts to define your personality, not just the relationship. And I've seen different forms of this. I've seen some people who just have a mild tendency towards this. And if you set a boundary, they'll understand and they back off. But with some people, this is ingrained in their personality. Again, I don't mean this as a very abusive situation. Someone who has a high need for power and control, those are the cases you see on TV. Like a husband, the wife wanted to separate and the husband kills the wife or does something drastic or gets physical. That's a very unhealthy dynamic, a very toxic dynamic that's harmful, physically harmful to someone's psychological and physical well-being. The need for control happens on a continuum and it's a matter of degrees. I'm speaking more in this video to people who are dealing with mild forms of this. Now, what's the solution? If you're dealing with a dynamic like this, how can you actually fix it so that you're not being negatively impacted? The first step in changing this dynamic is awareness that it's actually happening. It's awareness of the dynamic, acknowledging that this is actually happening in my relationship and my relationship is not as butterfly and good as I thought it was. And also realizing that inside, these are all the negative feelings that I'm experiencing, kind of feeling invisible and lacking agency. And these are not healthy feelings to have, and I shouldn't be feeling like this. So really owning that feeling, giving it validity, identifying that no, there is a problem that needs fixing. So the first step is identifying the problem and getting out of a cycle of denial. The second step is planning and thinking about specific ways that you're going to take back agency in your relationship. So now you're aware of the dynamic and you're going to be kind of scanning when this kind of dynamic shows up in your relationship. Is it over when you want to take a vacation? It's over when you want to pick a restaurant and you have to give in and go with what he says. Where does this show up? And then you're going to start changing the dynamic and changing how you respond in those moments. For example, if your partner says, I don't think this is the right time to do gardening right now, we have other priorities, you might say calmly, I understand you see it differently, but I've decided to do it now. And then you simply do it. There's no argument. You're not going to defend. You're not going to explain more. It's just quiet certainty. And over time, that speaks volume to your partner. Now, of course, if you are in a highly controlling dynamic or an abusive dynamic, I don't suggest you do this because it's kind of unpredictable what your partner will do and how they'll respond to you. And I don't want you to put your life in danger for that. So this is again for people who are dealing with mild forms of control. While there might be some small tantrum or him getting upset, he will get over it, he's that kind of person. But if it's going to be a dynamic where he stops talking to you for like days and it just means more pain and trouble for you, then I wouldn't recommend you doing this because that can escalate things over time. So in that case, you may need more of a professional help in the form of couples therapy or individual therapy. And by the way, if you want to start couples therapy soon, I have a great video that tells you exactly what you need to look for and how you can start that process that you're actually set up for success, and I'll link that video right under the screen now. But I'll be honest with you, even if you start setting boundaries like I just told you, it's not guaranteed that you'll be understood and heard. That's because if you're dealing with a husband who's more passive aggressive, when you stand up for yourself, things can actually backfire and be worse. If you want to know how to handle that without causing more tension and arguments in your relationship, watch the video on your screen now.